Good afternoon. It's my job to kick this event off. I want to thank our panelists for coming today. I want to thank the students in particular who all have taken time out of their busy schedule to come to this. KGI students, and I understand we have some script students as well as all the faculty and staff who made themselves available for this. This is the first event of the STEM Inc. at KGI, and I didn't know that the Inc. stands for inclusivity, and so that's an important piece of this particular project. Now today, for this panelist, we're really celebrating women, International Women's Day. This is Women's History Month, so it's appropriate to be talking about women in the STEM workplace during this month. It's important for us to help women to succeed in the workplace, so I think it will be of interest to us to get some advice from these colleagues. But this is not just about women, and with the STEM Inc. at KGI, we're also talking about inclusivity for all groups that are maybe not as well represented as they should be in the workplace. To be competitive as a country, in a world, we need to have more people involved in STEM, and it starts with developing the interest early on. And so, we do actually Farm Camp is an opportunity that we've taken to help get young people inspired to be involved in science. But we really need to increase the entire workforce in the STEM area. But and about half of those folks right now are women. But the problem is when you look at who ends up in what jobs, only about a quarter of the people in the STEM workforce are actually women. And when you look at the top levels of the workforce, we still don't have enough women in that area, and sometimes they're not paid as well as the men are. So one of the things that we need to do is be very intentional about recruiting and encouraging young women to pursue careers in STEM. And by that I mean we have to be actively going out and pursuing it. We can't just let it happen. As women, I think it's important, and I'm not excluding any of the males in the room, but as women, I think it's important that we help each other out and encourage each other. Sometimes women have been quite competitive with each other. Having gone through a PhD program, where there are more men than women. Women were not actually very helpful sometimes in giving a hand up, and that needs to change. Women need to help each other to be successful. So I want to thank the organizers, and I look forward to hearing what our panel has to say, and I think now it's my opportunity to turn it over to Madeline. Thank you.
Afternoon. We are joined by a great panel and we're very excited for today's discussion. We're going to get started with opening remarks. We'll give each of our panelists an opportunity to say some opening statements, and then we're going to move into Q&A. But first, let me introduce our panel. We have KGI's Dr. Krishna Kumar. We have Dr. Hatcher-Skeers, Dr. Moses, and our recent KGI alum, Aditi Shastri. So, Dr. Krishna Kumar, would you like to start?
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. I'm the only male person in this panel, so I'll just stop and let them speak. Overall, I come at this topic from two different perspectives, if you will, like most of us, I guess. I grew up in a family where, somewhat of a traditional South Indian family where, there's obviously the traditional gender roles, but my mom was able to complete her career aspirations, went on to, she was a biology teacher, but went on to do her PhD in education part-time, trying to juggle family life and work life and all of that. And so I was familiar with some of the issues then. And I have two twin sisters, both of them life sciences PhD graduates, both of them going through the phase where they're trying to balance their initial career aspirations in the pharmaceutical industry and in the patent world. And then finally I have my wife who's on a maternity break now, who's a toxicology postdoctoral scientist at the UCR. So I'm surrounded by all of these issues that women face in STEM, so I get live feedback every day. But also, from another perspective, I'm an organizational behavior researcher and teacher, so I teach and do research in fields related to workplace and gender differences and motivation and all of that. And I'm somewhat familiar with some of the research topics, especially meta-analysis, right? Studies that accumulate other studies and looks at these differences and in some cases similarities. So obviously, as you all will know, there is a clear gender difference. There are clear gender differences at work, but the good news is that those gender differences seem to be smaller than what people would expect, at least in some areas. So that's where I'm coming from. So with that, I will move to the next.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Hatcher-Skeers. I'm a chemistry professor at Scripps College, but I'm actually part of the Keck Science Department. So we're Scripps, Spitzer, and Claremont McKenna. So I have students from all of those. I think I come at science in a less traditional background, I guess. I was raised in a single parent household where my mother and my two sisters and everybody in my family is a teacher, and they all were liberal arts majors, so I was kind of the freak that liked science. Everybody looked at me like, wait, what? What do you want to do? But the good thing was my mom was big on us having big dreams and doing whatever. And I remember when I was young being like, well, I wanted da-da-da. And she's like, well, then go do it. And I was like, well, people don't think I can do that. She goes, that's not an excuse. And so it was really good to have a mom like that. So I really valued my single mother for just that idea of, look, you got to make your way in this world. And she ended up the director of curriculum, and at that point, that was a man's job. So I think I got my self-confidence from my mom. And then my science thing, I guess my big thing is I think science is really cool, and I think it's really sad that we beat that out of kids at a pretty early age. And we take it from being cool to something elitist or too hard or too whatever. So I've spent a lot of my career just trying to remind students that science is fun and science is cool. And then also trying to encourage all of my students, my male students and my female students, to pursue science if they love inquiry, right? Like I also worry about when we say, oh, you must do science, this is the way out of poverty, or this is the way to break the patriarchy. I feel like you should do science if you love it. If you still think it's wonderful and cool and interesting, then you should go at it with all of your heart and soul. And if you happen to be a person of color or a woman, there may be some obstacles there. There's no doubt, they're not all gone. But if you truly love it, then you're willing to kind of put up with it. And you're willing to take the risks and tell people to stop. And then I guess the biggest piece of advice I would get is take advantage of any mentor you have. Like get a good support team. That could be your peers, that could be advisors. All of my advisors were men, they were all wonderful. I didn't feel cheated by not having a female mentor. I didn't have a female role model until I was a postdoc. And it was okay because they encouraged me, they did cool science. And I think having people, so when stuff came up and when there were times where I doubted myself, which happens all the time, I've been at Claremont for 20 years and I am still a complete patient or, clinical case of imposter syndrome. I still have those days where I'm like, what if they find out I'm not smart enough to be here? After 20 years, you think that'll go away, and it doesn't. But if you have a good team around you, they remind you, no, you're really smart, keep going. So do keep those people, keep the ones who make you feel that way and shove away the others and keep pursuing science because it's fun.
Dr. Moses.
Yes, hi. Hi, everybody. I'm from UC Riverside, and I'm happy to be here. I'm also a member of the board of trustees here. And I feel like I'm an imposter too, because I'm thinking, why am I on this board? Right? And I'm by training a cultural anthropologist. So I'm one of those social scientists that always ask the why question, and where does this come from? And how do we understand how to shift the needle. And context, I'm old, so I grew up during an era, during the civil rights era, where I was an activist. I was a social activist, because people like who looked like me were not in universities and grad schools doing anthropology. I mean, that just was not what happened. And my parents both came from the segregated South, southern part of the United States, where they couldn't go to these institutions they wanted to. So of course they wanted to push us, and they did. And I was always working hard, working hard, working hard. But my trajectory was, once I became a university professor, and I taught at Cal Poly, Pomona, for a while, I realized that it wasn't just about me changing. I could be as accomplished as I wanted to, but there were institutional structures that needed to be looked at. And the focus was on the person, the person, the person. You have to work hard, you have to work hard. Okay, then what about the institutional environment? And so that's the reason I became a university administrator, and actually ended up becoming a university president, so that I could look at these meta structures and say, what is it that is keeping women, underrepresented minorities from going through this system? What are the structural problems? And so for me, creating an inclusive climate and environment for everybody to succeed is my passion in life. And so I do this at wherever I am, and I've been at Cal Poly, as I said. I'm at UCR now, I was at the City University of New York, George Washington University. And it's about getting people to see that if you want the outcome, then you have to look at all of the obstacles, and the institutional obstacles are really big, and we have to be aware of those as well.
Yeah,
Well, I kind of, continuing the theme, I kind of feel like I have imposter syndrome right now, because Dr. Hatcher-Skeers and Dr. Moses are so accomplished, and I'm really excited to hear what they have to say today. My name is Aditi Shastry. I graduated in May from KGI in the Masters of, well, it was bioscience then, but now it's Masters of Business and Science now. I majored or concentrated in clinical and regulatory affairs, and I'm currently a consultant at Corsica Life Sciences, a boutique consulting company in downtown LA. Growing up, I also grew up in an Indian household, but my mom, she traveled for work 4 days a week. My dad was a work-from-home dad. So growing up, I did think that women couldn't do anything that they wanted to do. My parents always encouraged me, not necessarily to go the science route, just to work hard at whatever I wanted to do. And throughout my education, both high school, undergraduate, college, I've always had women role models who inspired me or just kind of, gave me advice. And I think it was so important for me to see people that I looked up to doing great things. And the same thing happened at KGI. Susan Bain was one of my mentors at KGI, especially in the regulatory field. And having someone who's been through all of this be there as your sort of like guiding force has helped me get where I am. So I hope I can share some of my experiences, and I'm really looking forward to what everyone has to say.
Thank you so much for all those wonderful opening remarks. We'll now move on to
Can I just do one housekeeping thing?
Yes.
If you did not register for food, there is some left over. Please help yourself, especially grad students. And if you're a panelist, will you please either speak very loudly or speak into your mic? Thank you.
Okay.
important announcement. Thank you, Krista. So we did take some questions at registration from people who are going to be attending, but if anyone has any questions off the bat, we can start there. No? Okay. Well, I'm sure they will come up, but let me get started with these. What is one piece of advice you wish you'd been given before you started your career? And maybe if one of you feels strongly that you want to answer this question, we can just start with one answer.
One piece of advice.
It could be fun.
Yeah, right.
I guess I wish that somebody had told me that there was such a thing as imposter syndrome. Because I think when I doubted myself, especially as an undergraduate, I thought I was the only one who felt stupid. And that took a long time to get over. So I was somebody who didn't go to professor's office hours or didn't do certain things that I think are really good for success because I thought I was the only one who felt this way and I felt a little unworthy of whatever it was I was looking for. So I guess I wish somebody had said, like, no, you wouldn't be here if you weren't smart, and you're going to feel that way sometimes, but, keep going. And I feel like it's the same thing in graduate school. For graduate students, go ask the question. Go to the professor's office hours if you're confused. Spend more time with your advisor if you can. Don't be afraid that. I don't think any faculty member really do think any question is stupid. We'd rather you come and ask and get it clarified than not. And I think there are some people who are so confident they'll ask anything, and I wish I was one of those, but I want you all to be one of those.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
I'll go next. I wish I'd been taught the importance of networking at a younger age, especially in undergrad, like a freshman or sophomore. I think I met so many accomplished professors in those giant, general chemistry classes, and I didn't really know how to network or if that was something that could happen at such a young age in college. And then, of course, at KGI, networking is, the big thing, and that's how I got my internship. That's how I eventually got my full-time job. So I think it's really important to build your network at every step of the way, because you never know what might come of that.
I wish I had been taught that undergraduate students can sometimes see things that our esteemed PhD faculty and our administrators can't see, and that because it's affecting us every day, we should be able to have a mechanism or to feel that hierarchy where you're on the bottom and they're on the top would allow you to speak and to have a voice. And to your point about networking, this is where the organizing came in. It was students coming together and deciding this is not what we need in order to be successful. They gave us the strength to actually talk to administrators to help us with that change. And it wasn't easy to do because, you're confronting someone who has lots more education than you do, and you're showing them where the gap is.
So, in terms of advice, just generally, I would say mentorship, as I'm just following up from the earlier point, mentorship is very important. So, especially for women employees, there are lots of opportunities, especially these days, where there, for example, there are grants and other situations where you can find good mentors. If you don't find good mentors, that will affect your overall workplace performance, long term. So that is something that I want everybody to think about. The other thing is, I don't want anyone to assume that there are huge differences in, for example, things like leadership, right? So, how many of you have heard this thing out there that males are better leaders than females? You've heard that before? Actually,
Yeah.
research, actually several meta-analysis, right? Remember I talked about meta-analysis where they combine studies, hundreds of studies in some cases, into one big study, right? Where they average out all the differences. They found that there are no differences between male leaders and female leaders. There are no differences. There are no statistical differences in leadership effectiveness. In other words, both male and female leaders are equally effective, but there are stylistic differences, right? So I don't want anyone to think that those stylistic differences automatically means that you're less effective or more effective, right? It just means that people lead in different ways, and that should that should give you more encouragement to be good leaders. So.
And this is where you can challenge the social construction of work environments and assumptions that people are making about who can do what, right? What is it based on? And if you use data, then you can sort of push back on some of those assumptions that are deeply, deeply culturally embedded in our society. I mean, they still very much are.
Yeah, great points. I have a question. The modern workplace is becoming increasingly collaborative, and we have a mix of generations, cultures, genders, you know, you name it. How do you become better at including others across those differences? Or if you feel that you're the minority view, how do you become a champion for yourself and just encourage inclusion in that workplace?
I feel like that's the magic question.
Well, if you have any thoughts on it, we're our experts today.
I'm going to talk again. Part of this comes from experience in the university. We want our students to be successful when they go into the workplace. So the question is, what do people in the workplace need? And by bringing people in like you all do with your advisory boards and what have you, you have that sort of, what should I say, channel so that it's open. And if you focus on the talent, if you focus on the talent and not necessarily looking at gender, then you will bring people into the room that can give you the outcome that you want. And if you do that and you still see that it's balanced in one way versus another, you can say, what do we do as an institution to get more people in the room that look like that? So then we're talking about pathways, right? What is missing so that why is this person not here? Why is this not an inclusive looking room? And then you go back and ask those questions about obstacles and help to remove those obstacles. But if you focus on the talent and who has the ability, that room can look very, very inclusive and very, very diverse.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think something that I noticed through 2 years of being at KGI and going through, Focus Fridays and, any other kind of like industry talks is that sometimes the panels didn't have any women on them. Sometimes they didn't have any underrepresented minorities on them. And I'm not a proponent of including having a diverse panel just for the sake of it. We're not checking boxes here. I think if you cast your net wide enough, you will find, just like Dr. Moses said, you will find a very inclusive set of people. So it might require a little bit more work,
Yes.
but I think it's definitely worth it so that the person sitting in the audience can see someone on the panel that they can relate to or that they can aspire to be.
I think it has to be really deliberate. As somebody who teaches in a department that is not diverse, and that we recognize it's not diverse, we're doing much better on the gender. Like when I came, I was the only, when I became a full professor, I was the first woman in 32 years to become a full professor. That's ridiculous. Considering I'm not that old. I'm old, but I'm not that old. So they had a lot of trouble keeping women, and the treatment of women wasn't great. It's a lot different now. We worked really hard in our searches, and we advertised to organizations that highlighted women scholars to try to get them to apply. But you do have to change the culture too and make them welcome. We are still not doing a good job when it comes to underrepresented minorities, and it takes an organization's willingness to have the conversations. And you'd like to think that that's easy, and it's not always easy. And so it may not be you when you're first starting your job being, okay, we need to do this, because you have to make sure you're advocating for yourself. But once you gain a little power, it's our job when we get power to start using that power to change things, right? So now our department actually requires an inclusivity statement, because we have people teaching classes that don't look like our faculty, and we want to know that you don't have to be a person of color, but you have to think about what does it mean when students come from different levels of preparation when they hit Gen Chem, or different levels of preparation for whatever. And but that took real work for us to even make that part of our application process. So I think it still takes intentionality, not checking boxes, but really casting that net widely and training people about why it's important and why it's valuable and why it's good to have everyone in the room. And then once you have a little power, you choose to use it for those purposes.
And the research shows that those kinds of teams are the most productive, the most effective, the most innovative and dynamic, and that affects the bottom line. So there is a business case to be made as well as a moral case. It's the right thing to do, but everybody might not be there yet.
Yeah, I agree with that, right?
We did have a question from our audience about negotiating pay or when you know it's time to ask for a promotion. Do you think you can speak to that, any of our panelists?
Well, the Association for Women in Science has a website, and you can go there, and they have a webinar and information about negotiation 101. I mean, it's sort of where you start. And the data, the research, it's clear that women tend to not ask for what they need. And because they don't ask for what they need going in the very first job, they then are at a disadvantage because every raise they're asking for, it may seem as though they're, asking for the moon, when in fact they did not. So cultural factors play a part in that, but it's about understanding your worth and your value and not feeling that you're asking for something that you don't deserve. And a lot of places don't tell you what other people make. So you don't know, if you're whistling in the dark or not. We work for a public university, and so we know what everybody makes. And so it's a little bit easier. But knowing what the market is and what things will be, you gotta do a little bit of research around that.
So to follow up on the research aspect too, again, going back to the meta-analytic findings, research clearly shows that women tend to not initiate negotiations, right? So, but there are some conditions there. Certain conditions can mitigate that aspect. For example, if there are situational cues, in other words, if there are people who can prompt, or if the situation is so clear that everybody's supposed to negotiate, then these gender differences actually goes away, which shows the effect of encouragement from a situational perspective, right? Such as having a mentor or having someone, sort of highlight the fact that, hey, you should ask for a raise or you should start your negotiating process. So again, having role models will also mitigate that effect. So it is shown that there is a difference in the initiation of negotiation at least. So.
And you can't underestimate the importance of doing that first negotiation, because you come in at a particular level, and let's say, well, in colleges, there's some range of raise, right? All the faculty are going to get from 2 to 5% or something, right? But if you started really low, your 2% isn't very much. And somebody came in at the same thing, and over years, that really, really affects you. And if your package also includes retirement, if you have a low starting salary, you're going to get less in your retirement. So it's really important that you, on your first job, do learn what the market is. Know ahead of time when you go in there what you should be asking for, and counter, right? That's something I did not do. I'm very lucky because another person who came in like 5 years later than me negotiated really hard, and I got called into the dean's office and given a really big raise because they realized I was training someone who was going to make more than me. So I'm grateful to her. She negotiated hard. But that also means that those 5 years I didn't make what I should have made, and I didn't know I was below market. I was just dumb. So know that. Go in really, really smart. And then the other thing, the best piece of advice I got, which I didn't use well, so do better than I did, was my male science mentor, when I got job offers, said, you will never be as powerful or as popular as you are right now. Because when you have a couple offers in your hand, they've already offered you the job, now they want to make you take it, right? And he said, once you sign on one of those, they can do whatever they want with you for a while, right? And you're not as valuable. So do think of that first negotiation as one of your most powerful moments and use it. So never take the first offer, counter back, and know what that's, know the rough range. And really, they're not going to go, no, you're gone because you asked for too much. They're just going to counter back with a little bit less, but you'll make progress. And it also will give you confidence moving forward.
Great, thank you. And on that note, what strategies or advice do you have for progressing your career? So maybe away from the dollar signs, but more towards what you're doing and what you want to be doing.
Well,
The tough
first of all,
questions.
you need to ask yourself the tough question, is this what I really want to do? Because you millennials will probably have 6 or 7 jobs in your life that will be substantive positions. Whereas us baby boomer, getting one job and staying. And consider, slogging through it and getting to retirement age as being the goal. So the question is, are you in the right field? This is what I'm really passionate about. Are there opportunities for me here to do the things I want to do? And if not, then what do I need to do to get to that point where I can make that move or move over? But take advantage of opportunities, take advantage of trainings, be available to step in when somebody steps out to finish a job, so that you get known in your organization as being someone who's dependable, who counts on, has good attitude, who is there for the team, right? I mean, those are the kinds of things that incrementally help, but it's not necessarily that you're going to be in that job even for a particular period of time. So think about it that way. This is one job in a series that I'm going to have. In this field or another field, closely related.
I would say don't be afraid to do the job. It's weird. I'm an academic, so yeah, we're sort of, you get in and you slog through. So that's a little different than probably what a lot of you are planning on doing. But it is true that you're getting a really good training and you've got a very valuable skill set. So be willing to take this job, and if it isn't what you love, be looking. Keep your eyes open. I like the idea of trying different things. Like within my own institution, I have tried different things. I've stepped in as an associate dean, I've run this program or that, and I've gone to a million trainings, even though I'm already a tenured professor, because I always tease, like, what do I want to do when I grow up? I don't know if I want to slog through till I retire. So I've worn a lot of different hats on my campus, which has kept it really interesting for me. But I do think it's scary to say, oh, I want to do this instead. Because you get that job and you're just so relieved, especially after being in school for a long time and paying tuition forever, you just want a job. But do be open to that idea, and if it's not what you like, give yourself a strategy, like, okay, I need to do this for this year or however long to get it, looking good on my CV, and I'm going to take these advantages to learn things so I'll be ready for what's next. But don't ever just say, oh, I did this, good enough. You won't be happy in the long run. So be willing to keep your eyes open if, it's got to be what you want to do.
And guess what? You're in the kind of fields where things could change. A whole new field can open up. And go for it. Right?
Yeah, I'm at a pretty small company, and it's consulting. And what you know about consulting before you even enter is that nobody stays in consulting forever. So even, my managers, the partners, they know that in a couple years I might be looking for a different career. They probably are too. And so they're always asking me, what kind of projects do you need to be on to expand your skill set? So it's really great, and I know I'm fortunate that I have a working environment like that they're making sure, I'm working on different aspects of the life sciences industry and gaining that experience to figure out where I ultimately want to be. And that starts almost as soon as you start your job.
And I want to ask a question about the data. In the fields that the students are majoring in, does the data show that if you move around, you're considered a dilettante? You know what I mean? I mean, is there a point in which you're moving around too much, and it looks as though you're not serious?
Not familiar with research that directly addresses it, but just generally there seems to be a slight difference in, earlier people thought that there are gender differences in evaluations, so your evaluations, your annual evaluations would affect your future, I guess, pay raises and all of those things, but not so much where there are not much gender differences there, at least that's what they say. However, if you look at promotional opportunities, right, there is obviously there's a slight difference in between males and females. So So I guess the sum total is that you should look for opportunities, as you all said. I'm not sure about specific research about actual switching jobs and
There is something that happens, and I'll shut up. There is something that happens. How many of you plan to have children? Okay. There is something that happens when you get to that point in your career, at least in university, where you have your doctorate and you're getting into your field of study. That's exactly the same time your biological clock is saying it's time. It's now or never, right? And this is what I mean about institutions not hugging back. Because if you step out, at least not anymore, but certainly at least up until 10 years ago, if you stepped out to have a kid and you came back, you were off track, quote, off track, if you came back. And if you come back, it's like, well, you're behind. Versus, this is what happens to women. The workplace says to itself, this is what happens to women. Do we want the next generation of kids in this country? Then we have to figure out how to accommodate this and not see it as a negative check mark in that person's category. So the enlightened institutions give what we're calling family leave. And it can be males or females, and they can take it for a lot of different reasons, including pregnancy. And it's not considered a negative mark. So that's kind of an adaptation to wanting to have professional families, right? Men and women in the workplace. But it took a long time.
Very interesting.
Just for timing purposes, my oldest child is 17, and when I was pregnant, there were no family leave policies at my institutions. It was like an individual negotiation with the dean. It was ridiculous. And the only reason I got a leave with my first child, like I got a full semester leave, is because I was on an endowed chair for maintaining women in the faculty.
Oh.
And so at first there was this like, well, we can't, 2 of the 3 schools said, well, we can't do that. We don't uniformly give this. And the school that had the grant said, I am simply not going back to the donors and say, yeah, we didn't give her maternity leave. Like this was, and it was awesome because it opened the floodgates, and all 3 institutions within a year matched the policy that I was given. But I didn't ask. I assumed because I was going to a women's college, they had it in place. So don't assume people are enlightened. It's a worthwhile question to ask. And if you don't want to ask it on your interview, ask it after they've given you the job. And then, okay, so what happens when? But it isn't, it seems like everybody should have it. But it's not necessarily true, and you shouldn't make assumptions. You should find out what the systems in place are. We've had a baby boom in our department now. I mean, I was the first person who dared have a child while on the tenure track. I mean, that was the other thing, is you can't get pregnant before you have tenure. And I was like, I can't wait until. So, yeah, it was a very strange conversation. Like, I'm really old by the time I get tenure. But, so it went from that to, us throwing baby showers in the department. So it definitely has gotten better, but just don't assume anything. But you have rights, and you want to be in institutions that already, recognize that.
Yes, question?
Can I ask a question related to that? Are there any data that shows what we can do to equalize that sort of sense of a check mark? Because women do not spontaneously have babies on their own, and yet bear the burden usually of that stigma around, well, once you have a baby, you're not going to be as focused,
Exactly.
or you're going to be the one who's most likely to stay at home. And even when you're pregnant, there's just this visibility issue. When I had my son, my husband, people at my husband's work didn't know that he was having a child until they were throwing us a shower. And they're like, oh, you're expecting a baby. Like, no one could at that point. No one could avoid knowing that I was having a baby. So are there things that can be done institutionally, going back to your opening comments, Dr. Moses, about like what can we do to sort of equalize this policies around that, and even just like cultural ideas around who is actually responsible for child rearing.
One of the things we did, because we were part of the University of California, we talked about how to destigmatize it so that it wasn't something that you had to negotiate. It was the assumption is that you have that leave unless you opt out of it. And then that makes everybody has it. Well, and that's why I say it's called family leave. So you can do it for, like my mom's 96. At some point, I'm gonna have to take it. And people they don't ask questions about why you're doing it, because it's a part of your job. So that's kind of a more enlightened way of looking at it than saying, oh yeah. And you're absolutely right. I will tell you, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't maybe say this. There was a policy. There was a department chair. There was a policy. There was one of our faculty members on maternity leave, on family leave, which means you're not there, you can't do the work. He was calling her up and saying, I need you to do this because you're the only person who could do it in the department. And she called the administration crying because he says, what do I do? So we have to train people in the system, even though we have the policy, to understand what that means on the ground for them and for their work. So it's a lot of intentional work, putting it in place, but you gotta educate people around who's gonna be using it.
And support everyone who uses it. I mean, the other thing is if we go out of our way really supporting the people who take it and it becomes normative, then it won't be so weird, right? And so it really is important, even if you end up burdened because somebody else took family leave, don't say you're burdened, think of it as, I'm gonna be able to do this later, because I think that's part of it too, is somebody does have to pick up, like something has to be made up for when you're not there. And what we need are like coworkers and administrators and people who get that. I mean, it was really weird. I had my third child, God forbid, and I filled out the paperwork, and then I get a call from HR that said, oh, you can't have 3. And I was like, wait, I'm confused. And she said, no, the policy is written, you can only take 2 family leaves. And I go look through the paperwork, and I was like, I don't see anywhere where it says I can only take 2. And she said, oh, but we're rewriting it because we don't want people taking advantage of the process. And I had to actually get my dean to go to HR with me to tell her she couldn't change the policy because I dared have a 3rd child. It was really bizarre, and the HR director was a woman with 2 children. I couldn't understand, but it was this weird mindset of like, now you're taking advantage. And you know, luckily there were other people who were completely supportive, and it did turn out, we ended up doing a study, and through all of Claremont colleges, all 7 institutions, as of 2006, I was the 11th person in the history of the colleges, male or female, that had the audacity to have more than 2 children. And so we tried to explain to them, like, yes, you want to give leave, it's not expensive. A lot of people don't do this. They're not all going to run out and have an extra pregnancy like this. Because there was this weird thing of it costs too much, right? And we kind of had to educate people, like, people don't do it. Like, I'm kind of a freak in the current world to have this many children, but they were so afraid of the cost. And we were like, there's way more people who don't have children than there are people who have too many. But just remember, like, be supportive. Even if you look and go, is she crazy having another one? Just support it, because the more we act like it's okay, the better we will be at supporting each other. And it won't be so shocking.
I think we had a question over here, Anya.
This is a little unrelated to that, but I was wondering, like, many of you mentioned that you had parents or mentors that, like, instilled the confidence in you at a young age, but how do we, like, either individually or institutionally have students, like, inspire them to enter the STEM field and have that confidence, but then also support them so they'll stay until, like, college or beyond? Because I feel like a lot of people drop out, like, throughout the process.
What does the data say?
Yeah, what does the data say?
Put the data first, and then we'll.
Well, I don't have. I'm not a parent
For
yet.
everything.
I'm not a parent yet, so I'll have.
Tell Kumar, we're waiting for your first child. Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
Take me.
Thankfully, we have a lot of.
You know, I was going to say the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the National Science Foundations, I don't know about, are talking about informal science for young people as early as possible, pushing it down into the elementary school so that science is fun, science, you can do science, everyday science. And they're really funding a lot of projects to where universities are partnering with schools, or faculty can do demonstration projects or help with science fairs. It's incredible how open young people are to doing cool stuff. And like you were saying, science is cool stuff. But they have to see it within their own environment, right? I mean, you have to get those experiments down to where they can do them. And they're kind of fun, I think, right? If you get them early enough.
I think you probably don't have any time, but the more any time you have, as scientists, go visit a local elementary school. Teachers are begging for people to come in and do something fun scientifically. And if you happen to be a girl or a person of color and you do that, you're modeling for people, and that's really awesome. And then I think your question is really multifaceted, right? Like, how do we support them when we get there? And I think that's really important, right? I think there's a recent study, I'm a chemist, so this hurts, but there's a recent study showing that first semester chemistry is the thing that knocks people out of science, right? So my department's spending a lot of time on what do we do in first semester science and how do we support students. But even just knowing that that is the course that's causing all the trouble and spending time figuring out what do we do, and we have some pretty innovative things going on. So knowing that is important, and then we all have to kind of contribute. So any chance you get to work with a elementary school, do. When you have children, do those kitchen experiments with them and get involved in their school. I know my children's school gets really excited. Once a year I go do some like demo fair, and just all the kids, for the longest time, my oldest daughter's little friends when they were in elementary school all called me Professor Science Person. And they would come up like, hello, Professor Science Person. And I thought that was really exciting, right? It really helps with imposter syndrome to have a whole bunch of people call me that. But it's a really worthwhile, and it's fun for you. If you get bogged down in your grad school studies and you're feeling a little like, why am I into this? Go teach fourth graders and you'll remember science is fun. So yeah, we should all keep them excited as long as we can.
I think organic chemistry was what dropped me from being pre-med. So
Luckily I don't use that one.
Okay.
But we're working on that too.
Well, what I noticed in undergrad was that the labs were full of women, doing the research, like test tubes, everything. And then when I realized that I didn't necessarily want to do that for my career, I'm looking at the pharma industry, I'm looking at the life sciences, and there are all these white men, like they're the faces of these companies. So I didn't really think that was really where I would fit in. So it was only when I, heard about like grad programs like professional science masters, you see a lot more like inclusivity, and you see people, you don't just have to be XYZ to, work at a pharmaceutical company or lead the lab, like anyone can go to marketing or business development or regulatory. So I think it's important to try and figure out how to get people from the research to moving on past that.
So you should definitely come to the seminar.
I would love to.
Help them see all the different things.
Well, it's the importance of what we were talking about, who you see doing the job. If you see people doing the job, right, you look like you versus not, then it's like, oh, I don't belong there. That's not for me. When in fact it might be.
Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I wanted to remind everyone before you leave to fill out the surveys, and then I think you could just hand them to Krista or somebody else who looks like they're collecting surveys. Please join me in thanking our esteemed panel.
I echo that what Madeline said, and also if you're on staff, faculty, or a student, or an alum, you are most welcome to join our STEM Inc. steering committee working group. We don't really have a name yet, except for the STEM Inc. part. That's on the front of our program. So please see me or Molly or Kelly or Juliet, and we would love to have your input. So thank you all for coming today.